I don't know what you're asking me.
The most feared man in Seoul's underworld didn't beg. He commanded. He took. He destroyed anyone who challenged him. But on this night, in the quiet darkness of his private study, Kang Minjun dropped to his knees in front of a woman who wasn't supposed to exist in his world. His voice, usually cold and absolute, came out broken. "Just one night, please." She stood frozen, her back against the door, heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. This was the man who made grown men cry with a single look. This was the man whose name was whispered with fear across every dark corner of the city. And he was on his knees begging her for something she didn't understand. "I don't know what you're asking me," she whispered. Minjun's hands were shaking. He'd killed men without his hands shaking. He'd watched his enemies bleed out while eating dinner without his hands shaking. But right now, looking up at this woman, he couldn't make them stop. "One night where I'm not who they made me," he said. "One night where I can touch someone who isn't afraid of me. One night where I can pretend I'm the kind of man who deserves to be wanted, not just obeyed." The silence that followed was so thick you could drown in it. Outside that room, Minjun's world continued. His men patrolled the grounds. His enemies plotted his downfall. His arranged fiancée slept peacefully in her family's estate, counting down to their wedding in 3 weeks. But inside that room, everything had stopped. Because the woman standing against that door, the American housekeeper who'd worked in his home for 2 years without him truly seeing her until 3 months ago, held power he'd never encountered before. The power to say no to a man who'd never heard that word in his life. Her name was Alexis Monroe. And what she decided in the next breath would set off a chain of events that would nearly destroy them both. But to understand how they got to this moment, to understand why a man like Minjun would surrender his pride, you need to understand the world he came from. A world where emotion was currency you couldn't afford to spend. Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, subscribe to Lover's Corner Diary so you never miss our upcoming videos. Comment watching if you're ready for a story about the most dangerous kind of love, the kind that makes powerful men weak. Kang Minjun inherited his empire at 26 when his father was murdered by a rival family. That was 6 years ago, and in those 6 years, Minjun transformed from a reluctant heir into something his father never was, absolutely terrifying. His father had ruled through alliances and careful negotiation. Minjun ruled through fear so pure it was almost religious. He owned half of Gangnam's nightlife, controlled the protection rackets in 3 districts, and ran gambling operations that generated millions monthly. But money wasn't what made him feared. What made him feared was the story everyone knew and no one dared speak about. 2 years ago, a lieutenant in his organization tried to overthrow him. The man had support from half of Minjun's crew, had backing from a Chinese triad, had planned everything perfectly. But Minjun discovered the plot 3 days before it was supposed to happen. He didn't hide. He didn't run. He didn't even increase security. Instead, he invited the lieutenant to dinner. Just the 2 of them, at a restaurant Minjun owned, eating galbi and drinking soju like old friends. They talked about family, about loyalty, about the weight of responsibility. And then, between the main course and dessert, Minjun pulled out a gun and shot the lieutenant in the head at point-blank range. But that wasn't the part that made the story legendary. The part that made the story legendary was what Minjun did next. He finished his dinner. He ate dessert, while the lieutenant's body bled out across the table. He paid the bill, tipped the staff generously, and then calmly called his cleanup crew. When his men arrived, he gave them a list. 17 names. Every person who'd supported the coup. "I want them gone by sunrise," Minjun said. "Not killed. Gone. I want them to wake up and realize their entire lives have been erased. Bank accounts empty. Families relocated to cities they've never heard of. Every piece of evidence they ever existed, destroyed." His men thought he'd lost his mind. Killing the traitors would have been simpler, cleaner. But Minjun understood something his father never had. Death was temporary fear. But erasing someone's existence? That was eternal terror. By sunrise, 17 families woke up to discover they had nothing. No money, no homes, no identity. And the message to everyone in Minjun's organization was crystal clear. Betrayal doesn't get you killed. It gets you deleted. After that night, no one challenged Minjun. No one even looked at him wrong. When he walked into a room, grown men who'd spent decades in organized crime would literally tremble. Some would start sweating. One man famously pissed himself just from Minjun making eye contact across a crowded restaurant. This was the world Minjun controlled. A world where fear was oxygen, and he decided who got to breathe. But fear was exhausting. Fear required constant performance, constant vigilance, constant reminders that he was something other than human. And somewhere in those 6 years of being untouchable, Minjun forgot what it felt like to be touched. Not sexually, though his bed was never empty if he wanted company. But touched in the way that mattered, in the way that recognized he was more than the monster everyone saw. He'd been engaged 3 times. The first engagement ended when the woman tried to poison him for the insurance money. The second ended when he discovered she was a spy for a rival family. The third ended when the woman fell in love with one of his lieutenants, and they ran away together. Minjun had them both killed, not out of jealousy but out of principle. His current engagement was different. Park Ji-woo came from a family as powerful as his own. Their marriage had been arranged since childhood, a strategic alliance that would unite 2 of Seoul's most dangerous crime families. Ji-woo was beautiful, intelligent, and completely emotionless. She looked at Minjun the same way she'd look at a business contract, something to be analyzed for maximum benefit. They'd been engaged for 2 years. The wedding was in 3 weeks. And Minjun felt absolutely nothing when he looked at her. Which was fine. Feelings were dangerous in his world. Feelings got you killed. But then he made a mistake. He noticed his housekeeper. Alexis Monroe had been invisible for 2 years. That was the job. Wealthy Korean families hired foreign domestic workers specifically because they could be invisible, present but not seen, functional but not human. She'd come to Seoul running from Chicago, from an ex-boyfriend whose love had left bruises on her ribs and terror in her chest, from debt collectors who'd started making threats, from a mother who kept asking why Alexis couldn't just be normal and settle down. The agency placed her with the Kong family, and Alexis learned quickly, don't make eye contact. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't exist louder than a whisper. For 2 years, she'd perfected invisibility. She cleaned rooms Minjun had just left, still warm with his presence. She prepared meals he ate without noticing who'd cooked them. She washed clothes that smelled like his cologne and felt the expensive fabric between her fingers and imagined what it would be like to live in a world where you could afford to be careless with $1,000 shirts. She never thought he'd notice her. Why would he? She was help. Furniture with a pulse. But 3 months ago, something shifted. It started small. Minjun walked past her in the hallway, and instead of looking through her like he always did, he paused. Just for a second. His eyes met hers, and Alexis saw something flicker across his face. Confusion, maybe? Like he was surprised to discover she had eyes that could look back. "What's your name?" he asked in English. Alexis's heart stopped. Staff and family didn't interact. This was breaking protocol. "Alexis, sir," she managed. "How long have you worked here?" 2 years, sir." Minjun stared at her for a long moment, like he was trying to reconcile the fact that someone had been in his house for 2 years and he never truly seen them. Then he nodded once and continued walking. But something had changed. After that, Alexis started noticing him noticing her. Not obviously. Minjun was too controlled for obvious. But she'd feel his eyes on her when she served dinner. She'd catch him watching her clean, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. Once, she was dusting the library and didn't realize he was there, sitting in the leather chair by the window, completely still. When she finally noticed him and gasped, startled, he didn't apologize or leave. He just said, "Continue." So she did, dusting around him, hyper-aware of his presence, of the way he watched her move, of the silence that felt heavier than conversation. When she finished, she bowed slightly and turned to leave. "You're not afraid of me," Minjun said. It wasn't a question, but Alexis heard the confusion in it. She turned back. "Should I be, sir? Everyone else is." Alexis considered this. I'm sure you've given them reason to be. But you've never given me one. Minjun's expression shifted, something almost like surprise. You don't know what I've done. I know what people say you've done, Alexis replied carefully. But I only judge people by how they treat me. You've been a fair employer. Distant but fair. Distant, Minjun repeated, tasting the word. Is that what you think I am? I think you're alone, Alexis said, and the words came out before she could stop them. I think you're surrounded by people who fear you and no one who sees you. The silence that followed was dangerous. Alexis had just crossed the line so far over the boundary that she couldn't even see the boundary anymore. She waited for him to explode, to fire her, to do something that reminded her why everyone was afraid. Instead, Minjun stood up, walked past her close enough that she could smell his cologne, and paused at the door. You see too much, he said quietly. That's going to be a problem. He left. And Alexis stood in that library, hands shaking, knowing that something had fundamentally shifted. After that conversation, the tension between them became unbearable. Minjun started finding excuses to be in rooms when Alexis was cleaning them. Not speaking, just present, watching her with an intensity that made her skin electric. Alexis tried to maintain invisibility, but it was impossible now. She was hyper-aware of every move she made, every breath she took, the way her hands trembled when he was near. One night, she was in the kitchen late, finishing dishes from a dinner party Minjun had hosted. She thought everyone had gone to bed. She was humming softly to herself, a habit from childhood, when she felt rather than heard someone enter the room. She turned. Minjun stood in the doorway, still dressed in his suit from dinner, tie loosened, top button undone. He looked exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. I'm almost finished, sir, Alexis said, turning back to the sink. I'll be out of your way. Stop calling me sir, Minjun said, and there was an edge to his voice. Stop acting like you're not a person. Stop being invisible. That's my job, Alexis replied, not turning around. Your job is to clean my house, not to disappear. Minjun crossed the kitchen, and Alexis felt him stop right behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Turn around. It wasn't a request. Alexis dried her hands and turned, keeping her eyes down. Look at me. She raised her eyes, and the expression on Minjun's face stole her breath. It wasn't the cold authority she'd seen him wear with everyone else. It was raw, exposed, almost desperate. Do you know what you're doing to me? Minjun asked, his voice low and rough. I don't know what you mean, Alexis whispered. Yes, you do. He was right. She did. The air between them was so charged Alexis felt like one wrong move would ignite something neither of them could control. This can't happen, she said, even though every nerve in her body was screaming the opposite. I know, Minjun said. I'm getting married in 3 weeks. I know. You work for me. There are rules. I know. If anyone found out, they'd kill you. That made Alexis pause. What? My world doesn't allow this, Minjun said flatly. A mafia boss doesn't fall for his housekeeper. That's weakness. Weakness gets exploited. If my enemies knew I cared about you, they'd use you to destroy me. If my family knew, they'd remove you to protect the family honor. Either way, you'd end up dead. The bluntness of it should have terrified her. Instead, it clarified everything. Then we don't let anyone know, Alexis heard herself say. Minjun's eyes darkened. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything, Alexis said quickly. I'm just saying, if something were to happen, theoretically it would have to stay between us. Theoretically. The corner of Minjun's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Theoretically. They stood there, the kitchen counter between them, the entire weight of his world pressing down on this moment. I should go, Alexis said. Yes, Minjun agreed. But neither of them moved. If you're still watching, comment watching and tell me, should she have walked away right then? Because what happens next makes walking away impossible. For 2 weeks, they circled each other like planets caught in gravitational pull, unable to collide but unable to break apart. Minjun's control was legendary, forged over years of ruling through discipline and fear. But Alexis was unraveling him thread by thread without even trying. It started with small things. He'd find excuses to walk through rooms where she was working. She'd feel his eyes on her, and her skin would flush hot. He'd brush past her in hallways that were wide enough for 3 people. The brief contact would leave both of them breathless. Once, Alexis was reaching for something on a high shelf in the library, standing on her toes, stretching up. She didn't hear Minjun enter. Suddenly, his hand was there, easily reaching what she couldn't, his body pressing close behind hers, his breath warm against her neck. He handed her the book she'd been reaching for, but neither of them moved. "Thank you," Alexis whispered, her voice shaking. Minjun's other hand settled on her waist, just for a second, his fingers pressing into her hip through the fabric of her uniform. "You're welcome." Then he was gone, leaving Alexis trembling against the bookshelf, the book clutched to her chest, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The tension was becoming dangerous. Minjun found himself thinking about her constantly, distracted in meetings, irritated with everyone around him because none of them were her. This wasn't how his mind was supposed to work. He trained himself for years to compartmentalize, to separate emotion from action, to never let desire interfere with control. But Alexis bypassed every defense he built. He'd be in the middle of negotiating a territory dispute, men's lives hanging in the balance, and he'd catch himself wondering what she was doing. If she was thinking about him. If she felt this same electric pull that was slowly driving him insane. His lieutenant, Kim Taehyun, noticed the change. "Boss, are you listening?" Taehyun asked one afternoon during a strategy meeting. Minjun realized he'd been staring at nothing for 5 minutes while his men waited for decisions. "Continue," Minjun said coldly, forcing his attention back. But after the meeting, Taehyun pulled him aside. "What's wrong with you? You've been different for weeks." "Nothing's wrong," Minjun said, his voice sharp with warning. Taehyun had been with him for 10 years, was one of the few people who'd earned the right to push back slightly. "Is it the wedding? If you don't want to marry Park Ji-woo, the wedding is necessary for the alliance." Minjun cut him off. "This isn't about that." "Then what is it about?" "Nothing," Minjun repeated, and the edge in his voice made Taehyun drop it. But Minjun knew it was a lie. It was about everything. Late one night, unable to sleep, Minjun went to the kitchen for water. Alexis was there again, sitting at the small staff table in the corner, eating a simple meal of rice and kimchi. She looked up when he entered, startled. "I'm sorry, I thought everyone was asleep." "I'll eat in my room, stay," Minjun said. He got his water and stood across from her, the kitchen island between them like a barrier protecting them both. "You eat alone often?" "Staff aren't supposed to eat with family," Alexis said. "That's not what I asked." Alexis met his eyes. "Yes. I eat alone often. It's what I'm used to." "In America too?" "Everywhere," Alexis said quietly. "I've been alone most of my life." "You learn to prefer it." "I don't believe that," Minjun said. "No one prefers loneliness. They just get used to it because it's safer than the alternative." "And what's the alternative?" Alexis asked. "Being hurt by people you let close," Minjun said. "Yeah," Alexis agreed softly. "That's exactly it." They looked at each other across that kitchen, 2 people who'd learned to survive by not needing anyone, recognizing something mirror-like in each other's carefully constructed isolation. "Why did you really come to Korea?" Minjun asked. Alexis hesitated, then decided honesty was the only currency that mattered here. "I had a boyfriend in Chicago. He said he loved me. For a year, I believed him. Then the love turned into control. Control turned into violence. I tried to leave 3 times. Each time, he found me and it got worse. The 4th time, I didn't just leave the relationship. I left the country." Minjun's hands tightened on his water glass. "Where is he now?" "Chicago, I assume." "Why?" "Because I want to know where to send people," Minjun said, his voice dropping into that cold, dangerous register Alexis had heard him use with his men. "No one touches what's mine." The words hung in the air. "What's mine?" "I'm not yours," Alexis said carefully. "No," Minjun agreed. But you could be. If you wanted. I work for you. That could change. You're getting married in 2 weeks. That can't change, Minjun admitted. The alliance is too important. My family, her family, they've been planning this for years. If I back out now, it starts a war. Then what are you offering me? Alexis asked, and there was no accusation in it, just genuine curiosity. To be your secret? Your kept woman? Something you hide from your wife and your world? Minjun's jaw tightened. Put like that, it sounded exactly as ugly as it was. I'm offering you the only thing I have to give. Pieces of myself that no one else gets. Moments when I don't have to pretend. A place where I can be honest. That's not enough, Alexis said. I know, Minjun replied. But it's all I have. They stared at each other, the truth of an impossible situation settling between them. I should go, Alexis said, standing up. Minjun moved before his brain could stop him. He crossed the kitchen and caught her wrist gently, stopping her. The contact was electric. They both felt it, that jolt of connection that was more than physical, something that bypassed skin and went straight to whatever part of humans recognized their matching pieces. Don't, Minjun said, and his voice broke on the word. Don't go. Not yet. If I stay, Alexis started. I know, Minjun interrupted. If you stay, everything changes. If you stay, we cross a line we can't uncross. If you stay, I won't be able to pretend anymore that I don't want you more than I've ever wanted anything in my entire life. His hand was still on her wrist, his thumb pressing against her pulse point, feeling how fast her heart was beating. I'm dangerous for you, he continued. My world will destroy you if it finds out. But I'm standing here begging you to stay anyway because I'm selfish and I'm desperate, and I don't know how to stop wanting you. Alexis should have left. Every survival instinct she'd honed over 26 years of life screamed at her to leave. But instead, she turned her hand in his grip, lacing their fingers together. One night, she whispered. Just one night where we stop fighting this. Then we go back to reality. One night. Minjun agreed, knowing it was a lie. Knowing that one night wouldn't be enough. Knowing that he was about to burn down everything he built for a woman he'd barely known 3 months. But in that moment, he didn't care. If you're still watching, comment still watching and tell me, was this the moment everything became inevitable? Or should they have walked away? Because what happens in the next 7 days will prove that some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. They didn't immediately fall into bed. That's not how it happened. Instead, Minjun took Alexis's hand and led her upstairs, past his bedroom, past the family wing, up to the roof garden that overlooked the city lights of Seoul stretched out like stars fallen to earth. I come here when I need to remember there's a world beyond my decisions, Minjun said, not letting go of her hand. When the walls start closing in. They sat on the stone bench, shoulders touching, fingers still intertwined, and for an hour they just talked. Real talk, the kind that strips away performance and leaves only truth. Minjun told her about being 10 years old and watching his father shoot a man at dinner. About learning that love was weakness and power was survival. About every relationship he'd had being transactional, no one wanting him, just wanting proximity to what he controlled. Do you know what it's like? Minjun said, staring out at the city he ruled. To have everything and feel like you have nothing that matters? To be surrounded by people and be completely alone? To be touched constantly but never felt? Yes, Alexis said simply. I know exactly what that's like. Minjun turned to look at her, really look at her, and in her eyes, he saw his own isolation reflected back. How did you survive it? He asked. I didn't, Alexis said honestly. I'm still drowning. I just got good at doing it quietly. Something about that honesty broke something in Minjun. He pulled her against him, not sexually but desperately, like a man drowning grabbing onto something solid. Alexis wrapped her arms around him, and they stayed like that, two broken people holding each other together on a rooftop in Seoul while the city hummed beneath them. I don't know how to do this, Minjun admitted into her hair. I don't know how to want someone without destroying them. I don't know how to be gentle. I don't know how to be anything except what they made me. Then don't be gentle, Alexis said, pulling back to look at him. Be real. That's all I want. Not your control or your power or your performance. Just you. Whatever that looks like. Minjun kissed her then, and it wasn't gentle. It was desperate and hungry, and 6 years of being untouched by anyone who mattered. Alexis kissed him back with equal desperation. 3 years of being invisible, suddenly visible, suddenly matching to someone who'd learned not to let anything matter. They stayed on that rooftop for hours, kissing, talking, existing in a bubble where his world couldn't reach them. But eventually, reality intruded. Minjun's phone buzzed incessantly. 17 missed calls from Taehyun. I have to go, Minjun said, his forehead pressed against hers. Business that can't wait. I know, Alexis said. Will I see you tomorrow? Every day, Minjun promised. Every possible moment. He kissed her once more, stood up, and before he left he turned back. This isn't one night, is it? No, Alexis admitted. This is everything. Minjun nodded once, something like relief and terror crossing his face, and left. But he was wrong about having every day. He had 7 stolen days before his world caught fire, and everything they built in secret came crashing down in the most violent way possible. Over the next week, they found moments. Brief, stolen, perfect moments. Minjun would pull her into empty rooms and kiss her like she was oxygen. They'd meet on the roof at 3 in the morning and talk until sunrise forced them apart. Once, after a particularly stressful meeting with rival families, Minjun came home covered in someone else's blood and found Alexis in the hallway. Without a word, she led him to his room, drew him a bath, and sat beside the tub while he washed away violence, and told her about the man he'd had to kill that night. Does it bother you? Minjun asked. That I've killed people? Does it bother you that I understand why you had to? Alexis countered. Minjun looked at her, at this woman who should have run screaming from what he was but instead sat calmly beside his bathtub, and he felt something crack open in his chest that he'd kept sealed for 32 years. I think I'm falling in love with you, he said, the words torn from somewhere deep. I think I already fell, Alexis replied. That night, they finally crossed the last line. Minjun carried her to his bed, and for the first time in his life, he made love to someone instead of just having sex. Slow, deliberate, worshipful, like he was learning a language he'd never been taught. Afterward, Alexis lay with her head on his chest, tracing the scars that covered his torso, each one a story of survival. I don't know how this ends, Minjun admitted. I don't know how to keep you safe in my world. Maybe we figure it out together, Alexis said. Maybe we don't have to have all the answers tonight. I'm getting married in 7 days, Minjun said, the words heavy. I can't stop it. The alliance, I know, Alexis interrupted. I know you can't. And I know what that makes me. But I can't walk away from you either. You should, Minjun said. You should run as far from me as possible. Probably, Alexis agreed. But I'm tired of running. And I'm tired of being alone. So if this is all we get, stolen moments and secret midnights and pretending during the day that we're nothing to each other, I'll take it. Because something with you is better than everything without you. Minjun pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her, memorizing the feel of her, knowing that 7 days wasn't enough time, but it was all time they had before his wedding to Jiwoo shattered this perfect, impossible bubble. But on day 5, everything accelerated. Minjun received a text from an unknown number. A single photo. Him and Alexis on the roof garden, kissing. The caption, Your enemies know. Run. Minjun's blood went cold. He showed Alexis the photo. Pack a bag, he said, his voice switching instantly into the cold command mode she'd only heard him use with his men. Right now. You have 5 minutes. What's happening? Alexis asked, fear creeping in. Someone's been watching us. Someone knows. Which means you're a target. He pulled out his phone and called Taehyun. Get to my house immediately. Bring a car and 2 men I trust with my life. We have a security breach. Within 20 minutes, Taehyun arrived, took one look at Alexis, and understood everything. Boss, if they know about her, I know what it means, Minjun snapped. That's why we're moving her. Safe house on the south side. Round-the-clock security. No one knows about it except you and me. Your father's men are watching your every move right now, Taehyun warned. The wedding is in 2 days. If you're caught moving a woman, then I'd better not get caught, Minjun said. Getting Alexis out of the house without being seen took every bit of tactical knowledge Minjun had. They snuck her through servant passages, out a basement exit, into a car with tinted windows. Minjun didn't go with her. Too obvious. I'll come to you tonight, he promised through the car window. I swear. Just stay inside, don't answer the door for anyone except me. Minjun, I'm scared, Alexis admitted. I know, he said, cupping her face through the window. But I won't let anything happen to you. I promise. The car drove away. Minjun watched until it disappeared, then turned to find his father standing in the garden, arms crossed, expression unreadable. We need to talk, his father said. About your American whore. Everything was about to explode. Minjun's father, Kang Dae-young, was a man who'd built an empire on blood and intimidation. At 68, he was still the kind of man who made younger gangsters nervous. He'd retired from active operations 6 years ago when Minjun took over, but everyone knew retirement was a fiction. Dae-young still pulled strings, still made decisions, still controlled his son's life in ways both visible and invisible. They stood in the garden, father and son, while Minjun's security kept discreet distance. How long have you known? Minjun asked, his voice carefully neutral. 3 weeks, Dae-young said. I was hoping you'd end it yourself. That you'd remember who you are, what we've built, what's at stake. But instead you moved her to a safe house. Like she matters more than your family. She's not a threat to the family, Minjun said. She's help. She doesn't even know what we do. Dae-young laughed, cold and sharp. Don't insult my intelligence. She knows exactly what you are. And you've fallen for her anyway, which makes you weak. And weakness gets exploited. I've never been weak, Minjun said, his voice hardening. I've run this organization better than you ever did. Profits are up 40%. Territory has expanded. We have alliances you never dreamed of. Don't lecture me about strength. All of that means nothing if you can't control your own desires. Dae-young shot back. You're getting married in 2 days to Park Ji-woo. That marriage secures an alliance that will make us untouchable. But if Ji-woo's family discovers you have a mistress, a foreign mistress at that, they'll call off the wedding and declare war. Is your housekeeper worth that? Minjun wanted to scream yes. Wanted to tell his father that Alexis was worth more than all of it, worth the empire, worth the alliances, worth everything his family had built on other people's fear. But he also knew his father was right. If the Parks found out, the consequences would be catastrophic. I'll end it, Minjun said, the words tasting like poison. After the wedding. I'll end it quietly. You'll end it now, Dae-young said. Tonight. And not quietly. I want her gone from Korea. On a plane by morning. Back to America where she belongs. She has nothing to go back to, Minjun said. That's not my problem, Dae-young replied. That's yours for being stupid enough to get attached. You have until midnight. After that I handle it my way. And you won't like my methods. Dae-young walked away, leaving Minjun standing in the garden, rage and helplessness warring in his chest. He pulled out his phone and called the safe house. Alexis answered on the first ring. Are you okay? She asked immediately. No, Minjun said honestly. They know. My father knows. He's given me until midnight to get you on a plane back to America. He heard her sharp intake of breath. And if you don't? Then he kills you himself, Minjun said flatly. That's how my world works. Threats get eliminated. So this is it? Alexis asked, and he could hear her crying. 1 week and then I disappear? I don't know, Minjun admitted. I'm trying to think. Trying to find a way that doesn't end with you dead. There isn't one, is there? Alexis said. Your father's right. Your marriage is too important. Your alliance is too valuable. I'm nothing compared to all of that. You're not nothing, Minjun said fiercely. You're everything. You're the only real thing in my entire manufactured life. But I'm not worth starting a war over. Alexis finished. Min-jun didn't answer because they both knew it was true. I'm coming there, he said. Now. We have until midnight. Let me have that at least. He hung up and called Taehyun. I need 3 hours. No interruptions. No one follows me. Can you do that? Taehyun hesitated, then said, 3 hours. But Min-jun, your father's serious. After midnight, I know, Min-jun said. Just give me 3 hours. He took a car he knew wasn't tracked and drove to the safe house himself. Alexis was waiting by the door when he arrived, and the moment he walked in, she collapsed into his arms. They held each other while she cried, and he tried to memorize the feel of her, the smell of her hair, the way she fit against him like she was designed specifically to fill the empty spaces in his chest. I'm sorry, Min-jun said into her hair. I'm so sorry. I should never have started this. I should have stayed away from you. I knew it would end like this, and I did it anyway because I'm selfish. Stop, Alexis said. I chose this too. I knew the risks. I didn't think it would hurt this much. They went upstairs to the bedroom, and this time when they made love, it was different than before. Desperate, urgent, tinged with goodbye. Afterward, they lay tangled together, and Min-jun told her the truth he'd been avoiding. The wedding is in 2 days. I'll marry Ji-woo. I'll do my duty to my family. But I need you to know something. I'll never love her. I'll never feel for anyone else what I feel for you. You're it for me. You're the only time I've ever been real. That doesn't make this easier, Alexis said. I know, Min-jun replied. But I need you to hear it anyway. Even if you hate me. Even if you go back to America and build a life with someone else. I need you to know that you changed me. You showed me what I'd been missing my entire life. And even though this is ending, I'll never regret it. I don't hate you, Alexis said. I hate your world. I hate that we don't get a choice. But I could never hate you. They held each other as the hours slipped away. At 11:30, Min-jun's phone rang. Taehyun. Boss, your father's people are moving. You need to leave. Now. Min-jun looked at Alexis, at the woman who'd become everything in the space of 7 days, and he made a decision. Meet me downstairs, he told Taehyun. We're taking her to the airport. Boss, I know, Min-jun said. Just do it. He hung up and looked at Alexis. I'm taking you to the airport myself. I'm making sure you get on that plane. And I'm giving you something. He pulled out a bank card and a piece of paper with account information. There's $2 million in this account. It's clean money, nothing traceable to my operations. It's enough for you to start over. Go anywhere. Be anyone. Build the life you should have had. Min-jun, I can't, you can and you will, he said firmly. Because I can't protect you here. But I can give you the means to protect yourself anywhere else. They got dressed in silence, both knowing this was the last time, both trying to hold on to moments that were slipping through their fingers like water. The drive to the airport was quiet. Min-jun held her hand the entire time, his thumb tracing circles on her wrist, memorizing the feel of her pulse under his fingers. At the airport, he walked her all the way to security, not caring who saw, not caring about protocols or discretion anymore. I love you, Min-jun said at the security line. I'll love you until the day I die. And if there's an afterlife, I'll love you there too. I love you too, Alexis said, tears streaming down her face. And I'll never forget you. Ever. They kissed one last time, and it tasted like salt and goodbye and everything they'd never get to be. Then Alexis walked through security, and Min-jun watched until she disappeared from view, his heart breaking in ways he didn't know hearts could break. He stood there for 20 minutes after she was gone, unable to move, unable to process that she was really leaving. His phone rang. His father. Is it done? Taehyun asked. She's on the plane, Min-jun said, his voice hollow. Good, his father said. Now forget her. Focus on your wedding. Focus on what matters. Min-jun hung up without responding. He drove back to his estate in a fog, everything feeling distant and unreal. 2 days later, he married Park Ji-woo in a ceremony attended by 300 people from Seoul's criminal elite. He said the vows. He performed the rituals. He smiled for photos. And he felt absolutely nothing except the absence of the woman he'd sent away. That night, alone in the bedroom he was supposed to share with his new wife, Ji-woo looked at him with cold assessment. "You're thinking about her," Ji-woo said. It wasn't a question. Min-jun didn't bother denying it. "Does it matter?" "Not particularly," Ji-woo said. "This is a business arrangement. I don't care who you love as long as you fulfill your obligations to me and to the alliance our marriage created. Keep your mistresses. Just be discreet." She left him alone in the bedroom, going to sleep in the guest room, and Min-jun sat in the darkness thinking about a woman on a plane flying away from him, wondering if she was thinking about him too, knowing this was what duty looked like. A lifetime of going through motions while the only real thing you'd ever felt disappeared into the sky. 6 months passed. Min-jun ran his empire with the same cold efficiency he always had. The marriage alliance with the Park family proved as valuable as predicted. Territory expanded. Profits increased. On paper, everything was perfect. In reality, Min-jun was hollow. He went through days mechanically, performing his role as Mafia boss and husband without ever really being present. Ji-woo didn't seem to notice or care. Their marriage was exactly what she'd wanted. A strategic partnership with no emotional complications. They lived in the same house but separate lives. They attended events together, presented a united front to their respective families, and never spoke about anything real. Min-jun thought about Alexis constantly. Wondered where she was, what she was doing, if she'd used the money he gave her to build something better than what they'd had. He never tried to contact her. He promised his father, and despite everything, Min-jun kept his promises. But he kept the one photo he had of her, taken secretly during one of their rooftop nights, hidden in his office behind a false panel. On particularly hard days he'd look at it and remember what it felt like to be real. Then, 6 months and 3 days after sending Alexis away, Min-jun's carefully controlled world cracked open. He was in a meeting with his lieutenants when Taehyun's phone buzzed. Taehyun looked at it, and his face went pale. "Boss, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" Min-jun asked. "The American housekeeper," Taehyun said carefully. "She's back in Seoul. And she's asking to see you." The room went silent. Everyone knew about Alexis, or at least knew there had been someone Min-jun had cared about before his marriage. The fact that she'd returned was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. "Where?" Min-jun asked, his voice carefully controlled even though his heart was suddenly racing. "The hotel in Gangnam. She sent a message through our usual channels. She says it's urgent." Min-jun stood up. "Meeting's over. Everyone out except Taehyun." The room cleared quickly. Once they were alone, Min-jun let his controls slip slightly. "Why would she come back? I gave her money. I gave her a way out. Why the hell would she come back?" "I don't know," Taehyun said. "But boss, if your father finds out, he won't," Min-jun said. "I'll meet her. One time. Find out what she wants. Then send her away again." But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. If Alexis was back, if she was here in Seoul asking to see him, nothing in the world would keep him from going to her. He took a car alone, drove to the hotel, took the elevator up to the room number Taehyun had given him. His hands were shaking as he knocked. Alexis opened the door, and Min-jun forgot how to breathe. She looked different. Stronger somehow, more confident, but still heartbreakingly beautiful. "Hi," she said softly. "You shouldn't be here," Min-jun said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I know," Alexis replied. "But I needed to see you. I needed to tell you something." She stepped back, letting him into the room. Min-jun entered, and that's when he saw it. A baby carrier on the bed. A tiny infant sleeping peacefully, maybe 3 months old. Min-jun's brain stopped working. "This is Lily," Alexis said quietly. "Your daughter. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after I left Seoul. I tried to contact you, but your father's people intercepted every attempt. So I had her alone in America. But Minjun, I can't keep running. And she deserves to know her father. Even if it's complicated. Even if it's impossible. Minjun walked to the carrier on shaking legs, looked down at the sleeping baby, and saw his own features reflected in miniature. His eyes, his nose, the shape of her face. His daughter. He had a daughter. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked, his voice breaking. I tried, Alexa said. I tried for months. But your father has people everywhere. Every message was intercepted. Every phone call blocked. I realized if I wanted you to know, I had to come here myself. So I saved money, got a visa, and came back. My father will kill you if he finds out, Minjun said. He'll kill our daughter. I know, Alexa said. That's why I'm not asking to stay. I'm just asking for you to acknowledge her. To know she exists. To maybe, someday, when it's safe, be part of her life. Even if I can't be part of yours. Minjun picked up his daughter carefully, held her for the first time, and felt something fundamental shift in his chest. This tiny person was his. She existed because of 7 stolen days with the only woman he'd ever loved. And she was beautiful and perfect and in immediate danger just by existing. I can protect you, Minjun said suddenly. Both of you. I have resources, safe houses my father doesn't know about. I can, no, Alexis interrupted gently. That's not what I came for. I came so you'd know. So she'd know someday that her father didn't abandon her. That he would have been there if he could. I will be there, Minjun said fiercely. Somehow. I'll figure it out. Minjun, you're married, Alexa said. You have obligations. I'm not asking you to destroy your life. My life was already destroyed the moment I let you leave, Minjun said. He looked at his daughter, at the woman he loved, and made a decision that would change everything. I'm leaving, he said. The organization, the marriage, all of it. I'm walking away. You can't, Alexa said. They'll kill you. Maybe, Minjun agreed. Or maybe they'll be so shocked that I'm actually doing it, they won't know how to respond until it's too late. Either way, I'm done living a life where the only real things I have are things I have to hide. He called Taehyun. I need you to do something for me. Something that's going to seem insane. What is it? I'm leaving the organization. Tonight. And I need your help getting 2 people out of the country safely. Long silence. Then, boss, you're asking me to commit suicide by proxy. I'm asking you to be my friend, Minjun said. One last time. After this, you never hear from me again. You tell my father I ran. You tell him you tried to stop me. You take my position. You run the organization the way you've always wanted to. But first, you help me disappear. Another long silence. Then Taehyun said something that made Minjun's eyes burn with unexpected tears. Where do you need to go? 6 hours later, Minjun, Alexis, and baby Lily were on a private plane heading to New Zealand, far enough from his father's reach that they'd have time to truly disappear before anyone could stop them. Minjun had liquidated personal accounts his father didn't know existed, pulled strings with international contacts, and burned every bridge back to his old life in a single night. He sat on the plane holding his daughter while Alexis slept against his shoulder, and for the first time in his entire life, Minjun felt free. Just one night, he whispered to the sleeping baby. That's what your mother agreed to. Just one night. But some nights change everything. Some nights are worth burning down empires for. The plane flew through darkness towards sunrise, carrying 3 people who'd chosen each other over everything else, who decided love was worth more than power, who learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from everything you've ever known to chase the one thing that makes you feel real. Behind them, in Seoul, the conflict